So this was Howard taking black and David taking white.
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
So we don't typically see the attachment at Q17 when there's a high stone at Q14. I mean, this is a small difference, but the reason being is if you were to replay the same variation,
Yeah.
this stone is better placed than at
If it was a low stone.
R14,
Okay.
right? So you'd rather have the stone at Q14. And I think that extra couple points of territory is quite relevant. And it also works much better with this low stone here, right? Imagine if you were to have
Yeah.
the knight's move right here, which
Yeah.
in general would be odd because you wouldn't necessarily want to use that with the Chinese opening, just because this is also a low move, right? Like looking at this variation, if you were to play the exact same way, this stone now looks quite weird.
Yeah.
So for that reason, you probably wouldn't attach here. When black plays the high move, you would normally just come in at the 3-3.
Okay. I was wondering about that. So you generally attach if your opponent is low, and you 3-3 if the opponent is high.
Yeah. So the two moves you'll see most common when the opponent plays high is either here, or this is also coming to be popular as well. And so you'll see this happen sometimes.
Okay.
Those are the two most common. And then nowadays, basically when your opponent plays here, it's either you play here or you tanuki. You don't really see too much else. Occasionally you'll see the 3-3, but that's usually a special case variation. In the opening, it's almost always Q17 or tanuki.
Okay.
So not a huge mistake, but it makes black stones look a little bit better here, right? So black ended up backing off, which is okay. It's just a different variation.
And I thought that the tiger's mouth was the right P18 was the right response for me there.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you play here, then black gets this nice block. If you play here, you still like the eye shape's not exactly amazing or anything like that. So
okay.
So no, the P18 was good. So I know you didn't play this, but again, if you have the option, play a corner versus as opposed to a side move earlier on. This is basically allowing white to get 2 corners where you get just a few points, or again, I'm saying you, but where black really only gets about 6 or 8 points on the side, where white solidifies 2 corners. So I would be much happier as white in this position,
right?
As opposed to if black were to, play something like this and take a corner, right?
And I played above him because I had the top right.
Yeah, I think either's fine. It's so open that it almost doesn't matter too much. So both are totally okay. But yeah, this vector line works well too. So I think the idea was definitely good. So cut is here is okay. You can also back off too. Your opponent's going to need to add an extra move here, and so you might be able to make this seem a little bit inefficient. So that's another way you could play. Cutting here immediately is sometimes a little bit risky because now your opponent gets to attack the stone pretty severely.
Okay.
So it is an option. You can play something like this and try to just reduce it. So it is an option, something you can consider, but I'm often more happy just to back away and know that I have this C8 stone later and I can choose when I want to do that.
Right. I guess I was looking at if I just backed off, then he could go D6 and fix it.
Yeah, but even D6 still has its weaknesses too, right? Like, there's still some agi. Like if you ever play here, C8 becomes a thing again. So there's still plenty of agi to deal with.
Okay.
But because E6 is effectively sente for this white move, right? Like I guess the thought is something like this, but then black gets to attack the stone. It's not quite clear who's attacking who. So I would say that usually when black jumps at E6, white's going to play F4.
Okay.
So you played the high move. It's hard to call this a mistake. Again, you're going to have to later on, you're going to have to deal with a move like this, which is attacking the eye shape of the group. I think what black doesn't want to do is push here, right? Because now white gets stronger here, and now you'd rather have this stone at F5 than have this down at F4, right? And so you still have to add a move to come back. So probably what black would want to do here after white plays here is just come and protect.
Yeah.
Because if white plays here, you still have So this, you still have this move later on, which is threatening the cut, which is taking out the eye space. So what you don't want to do is make it so that that white also gets this G5 stone.
Okay.
So what did you do in the game? Or so they attach. So similar concept, they attaching here. I think that the tiger's mouth, the tiger's mouth, the shoulder hit might be a little bit stronger, but this is okay. I think that this is probably a small move now, because I think that now this stone is pretty weak. So black could probably just ignore and play something like this. I don't know. I don't think, what is black going to play here? Probably not, right? And black now has the option of also playing in the corner. So when you're playing like this, let's say this is the variation. These two moves don't really do very much for white, right?
Okay.
This is definitely a mistake. If you want to kill the stone, just play here. Really kill it, as opposed to leaving open some Aji here. It's possible that there's some sort of weird Aji and that white could potentially live here. So much better just to, do a solid kill. So this ended up working out nicely for you because you got all these like forcing moves, and black kind of played a little bit too small. I think that black doesn't really have time to come back and protect these moves. I think black needs to probably, either invade here, play here, or maybe something like this to build the framework out and reduce white's framework here. The amount of points that black's getting here is never going to be that much. It's going to be maybe 10 points, but white was able to get way more in the corner here and still keep Sente to build out a framework here, or even just do something light like this and build up the framework over here. So I think that white's in a pretty good position right now. These stones just aren't efficient. So all good, all good. Yep, all this is fine. I mean, I see why you did this, because I guess you want to break up that vector line. You don't want to let black get center territory, but I think would probably be better just to attach here.
Okay.
And try to, so the vector lines that you're seeing here, right? You have a vector line that goes here to here, and you have a vector line that goes here to here, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the two that we're looking at. And so when you play this K6 move, you're breaking up this vector line that goes from K4 to Q14, right? But even if black gets a move here, you can still invade pretty easily.
Okay.
So it's kind of you're breaking up this position, but that's not the territory that black's really going to be targeting. What black, if I were black in this position you played here, I would be happy to just take and solidify this area over here.
I think what I was thinking, and I will, this is something I'm working on. I mean, prior to that move, black had almost a third of the board with no white stone. And my problem is I tend to go way deep when I shouldn't. And I tend to go shallow when I should. Like, the decision is to win, to play on the third and fourth line inside that black structure, and when to make like a reducing move. I think I also thought about P9.
P9. So this.
Yeah.
I think because the corner is open, just approach the 3-4.
Yeah. I mean, you can do any one of this.
Okay.
Any one of these are going to be fine.
Okay.
Because there's no one move that's going to seal it in. Even if you play like this, you can kind of treat it lightly or something. It's it's going to be really hard to actually capture these stones. So for that reason, I think it's okay to invade more severely.
Okay. So this is a situation deep would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like this is an unplayable move. It's something like this might occur, right? Which is also a different variation that you can consider. But because the formation of blacks is so thin, I think you're safe to invade a little bit more deeper and take away more points.
Thank you.
And the other part about that is white's very strong everywhere else, right? White doesn't have a single weak group on the board that it needs to care about. Like, obviously this stone is weak, but it's not going to care about this.
Right.
Whereas, black is if black doesn't get this territory, white's way ahead.
I was happy I got F17.
Yeah, I think you're doing quite well right now. This might lose it a little bit just because it allows black to expand its own area, and now black has this extra stone here, right? So it's possible that this is still a good move, but it's a little bit worse because black now has this extra stone at M5. That's similar idea. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and now I did the P9.
Yeah, and so when black plays here, black's basically protected the area that it wants. I mean, there's probably still invasion points here that you can consider.
Yeah.
So I don't think these moves by black are perfect. But it's not like white really gained anything. Right? Well, all white did was reduce black. There's never going to be white center territory over here.
Okay.
And so if you have the option of, you have the ability to potentially actually get territory, and you can, consider doing something like that, like this, right? Where now you can come and attack this stone. This is a much more fruitful endeavor than just trying to reduce, right?
And that weakens K4.
And that just, weakens the strength of K4. You get a little bit of territory for yourself. Yep.
Okay.
I would probably protect my corner territory. It's, even if white were to get another move here, there's still the 3/3 invasion point, which has some Aji because there's some strength over here. There's still like reduction moves like this. So I think that, probably just playing in this area is going to be a little bit larger. And, potentially if you build up enough strength, you could come back and attack this stone, right? That's something you can consider doing later on. But if you play here now, or I should say, if black plays here now, it's not an attack in either group. Both groups are quite strong. It's just a reduction move. And now white gets to come in and destroy black's territory. And this is not only a reduction, but it's also potentially giving white points. So similar concept. This is okay.
I think what I was thinking, since I didn't know where he was going to go, and again, I don't know how to do it well. Often when I'm playing a strong player, they place stones in potentially useful places. And then based on what the opponent does, they then have something to do with it. Yeah. And I think I was seeing what I could do with
trying to mimic that.
I guess I was trying to play lightly.
Well, so there's a difference. Okay, so oftentimes I think when strong players are doing that, there's an element of light to it, but they're also trying to make their stones work well together.
Yeah.
This black stone is never really going to work well with any of its other stones.
Okay.
Right. That's a kind of a good way to think about it, where like there's no good placement here that's going to be like, you know what, I'm going to get territory, or I'm going to be a particularly good reduction here. For black, there's really no difference between playing here versus playing here. Like they're all quite similar.
Okay.
And so, when we're thinking about which stones are going to help us, like, right, I wouldn't necessarily play N4, N5. I might be more inclined to play N4 because that'll give me a better control over the territory here, right? Yep. So the placement of the stone is odd because, well, white can very easily invade here and really, mess with black shape. Whereas if the stone is here or here, it's going to be a lot harder for white to get a good invasion, right? So, I think when stronger players are looking at those moves, it's not just of, staying light. It's also like, how does this going to work well with the future moves that I play?
Very good.
So I mean, this move by black is just categorically bad because you're allowing white to get the hane at the head of two stones. It's not something you want to be giving. And what you're doing is you're basically saying to white, take all of my corner territory. And now black's corner that it had mapped out is being used very poorly, right? And not only that, white also has these two moves here, so that whatever center influence black was trying to map out is completely gone. So, black has no choice but to play here and try to attack these stones, right? Black needs to use its strength over here to try to get an attack on these three stones. You can't just let them live cleanly. Unfortunately, this cut doesn't work particularly well. Something like this might happen. And black would be able to, white would still get the corner and black would get outside influence. This would still be a great result for white. Or of course that, white could also just play here. Something like this might happen. But this is a little bit better of a result for black. So in this case, I would probably, if I were white, instead of Atarian here, just Hane here. And then if black plays here, now you can get a clean Atari on this stone. And this would be a bit better for white.
Okay.
So this Hane here prevents the Hane at R2 for black, which is quite painful. Oh, sorry, excuse me. So again, just showing that one more time. And the order of the moves here is quite important too, right? Because if you were to, I know I'm going through this fast and I'll slow it down. You know, the reason why black Atari is here first is because if you play here first, excuse me, if black plays here first, white's going to play here. And now you either get the Atari at S3 or you get the Atari at, what is that, P5. You can't get both. Right now, I don't have the Atari at S3. Similarly, if I play here, I no longer get the Atari at P5. So that's why the order is very important, that you play this first, then play here. Similarly, you could also seal on the outside too, which might be large. And you can even consider playing something like this and seal on the outside over here. And this would be another way to play. But again, making sure you get that Atari first is really the key. Interesting. Okay, so white cut. Okay. This is not going to be a great fight for white.
Okay.
Because white has these 4 weak stones, but black basically just got to fix its shape over here, build up a, it has some strength over here. So even if white comes out here, it's going to be by itself. So I'm not particularly in love with this shape for white. Okay. This isn't necessary right now. Black's just going to give it up and try to attack these 4 stones. Even if white does something like this, black could just give it up and again keep the pressure on these stones. White's already gotten a very large corner. Black needs to get something on the outside in order to do it. Black's not going to make its territory back over here. Okay. Yeah, if I were white, I would probably extend. You don't want to let these stones get super attacked. They are to a certain degree cutting stones because this group isn't necessarily alive yet. There is some weakness here, so making sure that these live, there is value to making sure these live. Whereas this is not a huge territory move. Black's just going to jump out, and so you're separating black, but black has friends over here as well, so it's not quite a severe attack yet. And even if black didn't answer, let's say black played here instead, your follow-up move here is also not that severe, right? And your follow-up move here, may also not be that severe. So again, now you're looking at these stones, like what are these stones doing for you? Not a ton, right? Maybe they're connecting these stones up, but black still was successful in its invasion. You don't want to just you attack to get territory. So did white get any territory? Not especially. So mindful of time. So James and Alex, and so we looks like there were 3 other people. Were there any other questions about this game, David?
No, I think this was helpful. Clearly there were plenty of mistakes made later in the game as well, but I think this gives me a sense for what's going on. I think part of what I was thinking about that jumping out and him jumping out, I kind of made his thickness in the Q row less useful to him. Mm-hmm. He then got thickness further out, but where there wasn't as much room to develop.
Well, I guess the question is, if this group was fine, right? Like, let's say this group.
Well, I was also looking to potentially save that group.
Yeah, right. Like, but if this group was okay, does this thickness matter? Not especially, right?
Okay.
And because you don't have a particularly severe attack on this stone, you don't necessarily have time to leave this group alone.
Okay. So I would have been better off working on that lower group.
Yeah. And I will say, if black were to spend a move to jump out and play here, there are cuts here that are available to you that could be pretty severe.
Okay.
right? Like if something like this happens, it's oops, excuse me. You know, it's not quite clear to me that this is going to be even you could give up these stones to get a larger corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would definitely still get the advantage to white here.
Okay. Thank you.